Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Uncut History. That is right. Live streams are back. They're not going to be weekly, but I am going to try at least once a month to go live, hang out with my viewers for about an hour or so, catch up to speed, what's going on, tell you what I have planned coming in the future for the channel, and rant about random stuff, really. Yeah. I could try to say that when we go live, oh, Redoubt's gonna have an eloquent speech about some sort of very important historical event I've not heard about before. Now, I'm just gonna start stuttering and getting tongue tied, and by the end, I'm gonna be collapsing my glass and sipping excessively, praying for it to be over, and hopefully everybody will go home happy. So, how is everybody doing tonight? We have Estella Beard. I'm assuming responding to the poll we have that if the new movie will be good or not. I have no doubt. And Fu Man Blue, our regular supporter, has joined in. I've never seen AC units stacked up like that. History is so interesting. Oh, there is lore to Bo Brinkman and his AC units, and we will get to that in due time. So I got a couple different small things we're going to talk about. I didn't really know what to name this stream, something catching, something captivating. So I decided, well, I've been talking to a lot of friends about a new movie coming out that I'm excited for. So why don't we just lead off with that? So if you haven't heard, there is a new Civil War movie in the works, and it's being directed by Bo Brinkman. Mr. Brinkman played Taylor, the aide-de-camp for Robert E. Lee in the famed movie Gettysburg from 1993. And Brinkman has had a very big interest in bringing filmmaking back to the Gettysburg, Pennsylvania community. Last year, or I guess it was more like the year before that when the film it was, a few years back, there was a book that got published called Gettysburg Christmas, and it was your standard romantic Christmas novel. And inevitably, it's what gets shoehorned to be made into a Hallmark Christmas film. Well, it got greenlit to be made into a movie, and there was actually a bit of a fight. The initial production team wanted to go film it up in Canada, and the author did not want that at all because the whole purpose of them writing the book was to promote Gettysburg attractions. They wanted filmed in Gettysburg, and eventually Bo Brinkman got involved with making that movie, and he was very much an advocate for going back to Gettysburg, filming on location. Gettysburg had already been a proven ideal location for filmmaking. All the infrastructure was there for it. So that got made back, and I think they filmed in 2024. It didn't come out, I don't think, until this Christmas, though. But after that got wrapped up, all the interest that was created around that production kind of led to another movie being filmed right after in Gettysburg. This one actually set during the Civil War. And initially I had heard reports that it was just going to be, it's a Civil War themed Christmas movie. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I know that, what was it? Light and Sound Theaters, they did like a movie about I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. I've never watched it. I just need it. It's not like on the top of my list, but one of these days we'll get to it. I kind of thought it was going to be in that same vein. And then they started filming in October, and they shut down Baltimore Street, and they're filming full battle sequences in Baltimore Street, which got, I think, the whole internet's attention that, this isn't going to just be green screen hell. This is going to be, we're actually going to try to portray a more authentic depiction of the Battle of Gettysburg. Ever since then, we've gotten multiple behind-the-scenes footage, multiple interviews. Stuff's been filmed not only in Gettysburg, now there's stuff being filmed in Harper's Ferry as well, linked to this production. And the best that I can gather what this is going to be about, it's going to be about a fictional family, but it's opposed to, they're kind of like a composite character for what it was like for civilians to live in Gettysburg immediately after the battle, which is something I always thought should be made into a movie or a television series. It is ripe for material to be dramatized for viewing audiences. I mean, in some ways, videos that all sorts of people on YouTube documenting these events in Gettysburg for years, including myself, we've been trying to show aspects of the hardships that people in town suffered immediately, and then months, even years after the battle, will they struggle to piece back together. So this is something I've long wanted to see made. The title seems to just be Gettysburg 1863. couldn't think of a better title. I think you could have got a little more creative. And it does the little bit I got, it does like the climax of it is leading to Christmas. So it is going to be probably a bit of a way of a Christmas movie, but props to Brinkman and his team for filming on location as much as they could. The Shriver House in Gettysburg has been especially big in the production. They were filming, like I mentioned, the battle sequences out front. Now they're moving indoors to film a lot of interior shots. The Dobbin House, which is a very well-known restaurant, it appears in volume 2 of Retracing the Streets of Gettysburg, which you can watch here on the channel. The Dobbin House dates back to 1776, actually. The building's 250 years ago old this year. It's been used for filming. I'm unsure why they keep saying on the exact location of like this historic encampment. They keep talking about Loudon Heights down near Harper's Ferry. It's on the Virginia side of the river. They keep talking about Loudon Heights and its connection. Now, I know that there was troop movements through Harper's Ferry during the Gettysburg campaign before and after, but I don't know exactly what it's directly tied to. I just presume they were using that house just because, we need a mid-19th century house to film around, and this just kind of fit the bill. And Harper's Ferry is always being used for filming. Yeah, have you ever watched all those overly dramatic but poorly rendered History Channel miniseries that came out in the 2010s and even today? Watch where they're filming most of the sequences. It's almost all filmed in Harper's Ferry. I ruined Men Who Built America for me when I figured out all these sequences. Well, that's that building. Those are the ghost footprints of the Arsenal buildings. I'm just like, because there's the underpass for the railroad. It goes down to, you walk down to their point. Well, and then like when you watch Men Who Built America and their dramatic recreation of the Johnstown flood, you could have 3D rendered Johnstown, Pennsylvania in a computer simulation. No, you took Harper's Ferry and just inverted it. I don't know. The History Channel works in mysterious and laughable ways. Fortunately, I don't think this is going to air on the History Channel. I think Gettysburg 1863 will firmly be. They said it's going to be shown in theaters at the end of this year. That's the goal. So it's probably going to have a limited theatrical release, and then I presume it'll end up somewhere like on Prime. The period costuming, most of it looks fine to me. The big news, which only has happened in the past like 2 weeks, Stephen Lang, who's of course well known for playing George Pickett in Gettysburg. He played Stonewall Jackson in Gods and Generals, but of course he's also played Ike Clanton in Tombstone. Most people today know him for being the main. Well, he was the bad guy in the first movie, but then he's the hero in the sequel of the Don't Breathe series, and then of course he's Coleridge in the Avadar series, the most famous series to do nothing. Where's the captain to come in and defend Avatar right around now? We need that. I think Fu Manblue would agree. But yeah, Lang's going to be in the movie, and he's portraying John Burns, who, again, another person that needs, he is ripe for making a movie out of. John Burns he was in his 70s during the Battle of Gettysburg. He claimed to be a veteran of the War of 1812 and claimed to even have his flintlock musket from the conflict. And he went out and joined the ranks of the Iron Brigade out there northwest of town and fought in the battle. Ends up getting wounded and friced that day, and then crawls his way back to the house, survives. And then, of course, President Lincoln, when he comes to deliver the Gettysburg Address, that was like one of his top priorities. He had to meet Burns, this old man that just refused to die during the Battle of Gettysburg and defended the town from Confederate invaders. And there's a monument to Burns on the battlefield today. So Burns is going to be represented by Lang. I don't think we're seeing him in the actual battle, as awesome as that would be. I think we're just going to get a few shots of him interacting with the main fictional cast later on. But that's just an awesome casting. I know Bruce Boxleiter, he's going to be in the movie. He's playing Mr. Schmucker of Schmucker Hall fame, which is, of course, the famous Lutheran Seminary building that you actually see in Gettysburg, both the real battle and the movie with the famous cupola. So he's going to be involved. I know they did filming at the Lutheran Theological Seminary, which was really exciting to see. I don't think nobody's filmed there since the 1993 movie. So, yeah, I'm very excited about this. What do you guys think? Do you think this is going to be a really good movie, authentically portraying the struggles of the civilians in Gettysburg and all civilians that had to deal with the aftermath of an American Civil War battle? Or is this just all looking really going to be really pretty images and just going to be kind of the sappy Hallmark stuff that we're used to when it because what that's what I thought Brinkman was getting involved with when he came to make a Gettysburg Christmas, and that is kind of what Gettysburg Christmas was. But I even watched the trailer for Gettysburg Christmas before tonight's stream, and I was even surprised the cinematography. I mean, you could tell it's a small budget movie, but it doesn't have that the very blurry like HD camera effect that most Hallmark Christmas movies have. Like you could definitely tell they're they were shooting on some higher quality equipment. So yeah. Yeah, it depends on who's producing it. Yeah, it's to my knowledge, this is all basically an independent production. This isn't going to be this is an independent film. This is not going to be a big blockbuster or anything like that. Honestly, I have higher hopes for Gettysburg 1863 than Young Washington, which I know is very controversial with those that follow this channel. I know there's a lot of people asking me how excited I am for Young Washington. And well, you saw my reaction to the trailer. I gave him a lot of benefit of the doubt, but man, the costuming got me really worried. It just looks like really cheap stock costumes they found in some warehouse in California. I want to like Young Washington, and I will be there when it premieres. I will go July 3rd, 2026. I will be there for opening night wherever it's screening, granted within an hour radius. I mean, I'm not going farther to Pittsburgh for it. So yeah, I am more trustworthy of Gettysburg 1863 than Young Washington. But we got a whole year ahead of us to see what's going to become of it. Man, it's just awesome. They got because they had like a cannon. They covered the whole Baltimore street in dirt. They had, I think they even had like some guys were members of the Liberty Rifles that were participating. I don't think the unit itself were the reenactors, but I think there were some members involved, like in the reenactors that were running down the street. But yeah, that was pretty cool back in October, seeing all the footage of them bringing the battle back to life on Baltimore Street. So, yep, looking forward to it. All right, what else we got to talk about? Yeah, like I said, I have several small stories that are on my mind I want to talk about. That was just the one I'm like, yeah, that could be a good lead way into a stream tonight. I don't know if Historian Rants at Moon is a good title, for a live stream on the TubeView. I don't think that'd be a good idea. But I got a few other stuff. I do have a stack of stuff, Fu Man. I do have a stack of stuff, believe it or not. It's just digital. Historical dramas are less tantalizing to studios that want to spread the propaganda, but we've seen some pretty crazy stuff from Netflix. We've seen a lot of good stuff, and we've seen a lot of bad stuff from Netflix. It does. I would go back to what you earlier said. It all depends on the individuals that are producing it. Yeah, studio's a big thing, but even at the end of the day, you could definitely tell if it's, a movie's going to be wacky when the same lone person's name appears over and over and over in the credits. Like when Tommy Wiseau's name keeps appearing over and over in the credits at the start of The Room. The Room is one of the movies to ever exist. And I can go down a whole rant. I'm looking down because Fred the cat's down here, and I really don't know why he's down at the foot of the chair. That's usually for the evil cat, not Fred. Okay, Fred's he's leaving the studio. He's carefully walking around the evil cat. I haven't heard any hissing yet. I think we're good. I don't think I have to break up a cat fight. I think we're good. I have what I was getting on earlier about The Room. I have this whole argument that The Room is one of the greatest movies ever made, even though it's considered the worst movie ever made. But I'm like, but you have heard of it. You have heard of it, which is more that can be said for almost every movie made. So many movies just disappear, are so mediocre, nobody ever talks about them again. But you know about The Room. The Room is culturally relevant. Tommy Wiseau's The Room is more culturally relevant than James Cameron's Avatar. Let that sink in. That's a hill I will die. That is a hill I will build a redoubt upon and fight to the death within. Yeah, I have 3 of them. I'm doomed. Chatting in the Void, featuring Redoubt. Yeah, it's our favorite pastime. Chatting in the void, chatting in the void. Oh, hell no. Don't let the captain hear about Avatar. All right, let me get to what I was going to earlier. I gotta do this, share the screen, share the screen. Is this how this works? It's always like learning new things, sharing the screen. We're not there yet. We're not yet there yet. We'll talk about Mill Spring in a moment. But first, I saw a notification on the hate book like a half an hour before we went live. And it dawned on me that today is the anniversary of the Great Molasses Flood of 1919. So I just went and grabbed an article. This is from Times Magazine. It was published back in 2019 by Ray Kavanaugh. And we're going to talk about this sticky situation that befell Boston. The molasses tank operated by the Purity Distilling Company in Boston's North End had been leaking from the start. Employees had expressed concern that the giant tank, which measured 50 feet in height and had a diameter of 90 feet, was a safety hazard. Its owners even painted the tank the color of molasses in an effort to mask the constant leaks. Oh, God. So, like, what is the color of molasses? What is that? Like a bright brown, almost like a yellow? It's almost like a piss yellow. So imagine you're going down to the hardware store and you have to order, I need molasses brown. Why do you need molasses brown? Molasses brown to cover up the molasses in the molasses tanks. Maybe there was a market for molasses brown in 1919 and painting homes in Boston. You never know. Can somebody tell me in the chat, what does molasses brown look like? Can we buy it at our local hardware store? Can I request it to be made? Less concerned were the neighborhood children, who could fill their cans with free molasses from the drippings. But around 12:30 on January 15th, 1919, following a quick succession of unnaturally loud, ominous sounds. Yeah, hey, the whole tank is shaking. The North End, in a span of seconds, received more of the syrup than anyone could collect in a lifetime, and it was anything but free. The distillery tank had exploded and released its contents in a spectacular wave, some 25 feet in height and 165 feet in width. Despite the slow as molasses cliche, this tsunami of thick syrup crashed through the neighborhood at a reported 35 miles per hour. That is truly the definition of life as you know it is going to come to a sudden halt. That, if somebody threatens you with that, they mean they're about to dump molasses on you. Molasses may not seem to be the most dangerous of substances, but when 2.3 million gallons are unleashed at once, it can demolish buildings, tear apart train tracks, rip a fire station from its foundation, drown or suffocate not the dogs, horses, and people. This bizarre and terrifying event, known as the Great Molasses Flood, claimed 21 lives, with victims ranging from the age of 10 to 78. Some 150 people were injured, and the damage to property, much of which had cascaded into the nearby Boston Harbor, amounted to about $100 million in today's currency. The ensuing rescue effort lasted 4 days, as firemen and police, among others, struggled to contend with quicksand-like conditions and attend to persons who were not only maimed, but literally stuck in their horrendous predicament. Early newspaper articles misreported the number of dead because the often impenetrable mess delayed an accurate fatality count. In the aftermath of such chaos came an investigation, which determined that the man who supervised the distillery tank's construction, I had to breathe there, not only lacked technical training, but also was unable to read blueprints. Unable to read blueprint. Like, was he illiterate, or do we mean like he really didn't understand geometry? Furthermore, no legitimate engineers or architects have been commissioned to assess the structure. The United States Industrial Alcohol Corporation, which owned the Purity Distilling Company that operated these tanks, claimed that the explosion was not the result of substandard construction, but was instead an act of sabotage by perpetrators like the anarchists. Now, in theory, the claim was plausible, as anarchists and their dynamite tactics were common during that time. Remember, this is after the First World War. I know at least when you're talking about the coal mine fields after World War I, the demand for coal plunged, which meant the prices plunge, which meant Wages, they plunged. There was a whole bunch of controversy. Everybody was upset. Unions were forming. That's where you get the West Virginia Mine War from. Anarchists were involved with that. So, yep, makes sense for the time period. In fact, the Boston area had experienced 40 explosive incidents in the year leading up to the molasses flood. 40, Jesus. Furthermore, anarchists had bombed USIA facilities in New York several years before, and one employee reported having received a bomb threat against the tank in Boston. However, the ensuing court case, which would last 5 more years, decided that no act of sabotage had taken place and that it was structural failure which caused the explosion. 2 days before the explosion, the temperature was a mere 2 degrees Fahrenheit. But on January 15th, the temperatures had climbed up to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, increasing pressure within the tank. Additionally, a recent delivery of warm molasses was mixing with the cooler molasses that had been inside the tank for weeks. Such a mixture of significantly different temperatures produced gas and added to the air pressure within the tank, which hadn't been able to take it. Because of the court's ruling, USIA was compelled to pay restitution amounting to about $15 million in today's money. And there we got an image here. Policemen, firemen, Red Cross workers, civilian volunteers, and cadets from the USS Nantucket training ship berthed nearby rushed on the scene on January 15th, 1919, after the giant tank on North End of Boston collapsed, setting about 2.3 million gallons of molasses into the streets. Although this penalty was relatively moderate given the extent of death and destruction, it still carried the message that the legal system could hold businesses culpable for unsafe structures. In the words of architect William J. Hirsch Jr., accountability in construction was born. The sign of such accountability was the Boston Builders Department, requiring that any architect or engineer must include a signature along with all relevant calculations on building plans. As this requirement became standard practice nationwide, America's freewheeling days of unregulated large-scale construction and do-it-yourself engineering came to the end. Oh, but the do-it-yourself stuff can lead to some ingenious solutions. Not OSHA-safe solutions, but ingenious solutions. Believe me, I may have been called upon daily for DIY solutions at my place of employment. Before long, all the U.S. states had also instituted laws requiring engineers to have professional certification, something that the engineer of the giant North End tank absolutely did not have. Additionally, in order for a municipality or state to grant a building permit, the plans for any large structure needed to bear the seal of a registered engineer. And then it talks a bit more about here. Stephen Polio, your last name's named after an illness, polio. Author of Dark Tide, the Great Boston Molasses Flood of 1919, views the molasses flood as a pivotal end that did for the U.S. construction standards what I'm struggling, guys. Code Cannot Grow Fire did for fire codes. Though not quite as impactful as the enhanced safety regulations, a syrupy aroma was purported to have lingered in Boston's North End for decades. It resurfaced on hot days, serving as an eerily sweet reminder of what can happen when amateurs undertake jobs that ought to be left to professionals. And that was written by Ray Kavanaugh for Times Magazine, January 14, 2019. And that was my horrific reading of his article about the Great Molasses Flood of 1919, which we are on the anniversary of. Hold on one moment. Need a bit of water. Water. It's time for the water break. The water break. Very important. No molasses break on the stream, but we will have a water break. Alrighty. Oh boy, a bunch of people joined in since I started reading. Oh my God. I'm going to go read this. Everybody shows up in the chat. Okay. Yeah. 2.3 million gallons of molasses in January. This water tastes weird. Andrew, yep, that may be one of their thoughts. Unseasonably molassesy. Oh God. And then Wrangler has joined in tonight. Thank you for joining our stream. Yeah, don't let the kids get around there. They're gonna get the mother of all sugar rushes. A kid could eat himself. Oh, into an allergy with all that. Oh, Oh no. The tank of diabetes. Hmm. All the water, Fu Man. All the water would be needed. 5-1 water. So much water. Sweet wells. Very sweet wells. Thanks. So you'd rather listen to me struggle reading and speaking the English language than Gary trying to play a video game? I mean, to be fair, watching Nerdrotic try to play a video game is one of the most painful experiences you could have on the internet. I'm not going to deny that. As a man who follows him and enjoys his video analysis of Hollywood, cannot play a video game. He cannot play a video game. And I'm speaking as somebody, I don't think I've touched a video game in almost like 3 years. The PlayStation over here is really just my streaming device, my streaming hookup. And when it dies, probably this year, because I'm having a glitch right now. Has anybody ever had this before on a PlayStation 4? I'll have a glitch where it seems like it keeps wanting to go to my microphone automatically, like to use the search bar in YouTube, and it won't stop looping to it. And it'll go on for like 5 minutes, and then it'll just fade away. And then I'll start the next day. I boot back up the PlayStation. Has anybody ever had this glitch with the microphone before and the controller? Is there any hope to solve it? Should I just take the PlayStation out behind the shed? I don't want to do it. I don't want to take the shotgun with the PS4 to the back of the shed. But if it has to be done, it has to be done. I don't know, Lieutenant Bob. Thank you for watching us on Rumble, by the way. We do dual stream between YouTube and Rumble when we do the streams. So if you're over there, Bob, be sure to hit the like button over there. Oh, you're one of them. You're a master race. So yeah, that was the Great Molasses Flood. I've heard about it. I just didn't think about it until half an hour ago. I'm like, yeah, on this day. And I was like, oh, that did happen. Oh, we can throw that in there. That's always a fun story. Yeah, the molasses, it was for like alcohol distilling. Like I think it was for like a regular like whiskey distillery or something like that. That's what the molasses was there for. It was for alcohol production. It wasn't there to make candies or anything like that. Speaking of alcohol, we're going light. We're just enjoying a little glass of red wine. Just kind of enjoying the final few hours of the day. Been a long day for me. All, first half of the week, all day job. Today I was fortunate to be off, but that didn't mean I was off from. I didn't get to sit here and relax. The whole morning was college work, and then the latter half of the afternoon was all script writing / narrating for a new episode of Retracing History. And then probably once I'm done streaming, I'm probably going to spend like another hour starting to edit with that. I want to get as much done as I can on this next episode so I can keep up the pace with my uploads. And then we'll probably reach 10 o'clock. I'll crash and burn on the bed over there. And then we will repeat the process tomorrow for the day job. But for now, we are live. We are here together chatting away. Use Arch. I'll reline later. Just wanted to know if the new movie was something I should tell my dad about. Yeah, tell him if he wants to hear, if he's interested in seeing the civilian perspective of the aftermath of the Battle of Gettysburg. That's what this Gettysburg 1863 is about. And it's going to have a pretty strong supporting cast. We know Stephen Lang's going to be in it, playing a real life, whatever Clint Eastwood's character in Gran Torino is. He's basically playing the real life equivalent of that for 1863. And Bruce Boxleiter is going to be in there in a small role. I think the main cast is going to be new names. Usually with these independent productions, they try to get, new actors because they're affordable, but also gives them a good chance to shine. So that's what it's going to be about. Okay, so yeah, he doesn't like the civilian perspective. Yeah, if he doesn't want the big booms and bangs, yeah. This movie's going to be a little light on big booms and bangs. There should be a montage of fighting in the early half of the movie. We know they filmed fighting sequences in downtown Gettysburg, but I don't think it's going to be the whole movie. I am a boring movie watcher, guys. I'm the equivalent of a movie watcher who will watch paint dry. There's some movies I watch that I know are the dullest things on earth, and people are like, "This is so uninteresting. It's just two people in a room talking." Yes, but I want to listen to them talk because they're talking about some interesting things. The movie Mate One, which was directed by John Siles, I think it is. I forget. It's over there somewhere on the shelf over here. Came out in 1987. Not a lot of people know about it, but it stars oh I wanted to say Gary Cooper, and I'm like, it's not Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper, I don't think was alive by that point. Chris Cooper. It stars Chris Cooper, James Earl Jones, Mary McDowell's in it. David Strathairn is in it. Not a lot of people know about it. It's one of them I call, yeah, I know this movie can be very dull for a lot of people, but I like listening to these people talk, and it's interesting to listen to them talk about the Union coming down into southern West Virginia coal fields and how that leads to a shootout. So yeah, I may not be the best person to ask for movie recommendations because I can watch some pretty dull movies to the general public. But also remember how you like K-pop Demon Hunters. So yeah, I don't know how to gauge. I don't know if you should use me to measure your taste in movies, if you should or shouldn't watch a movie. There's going to be military characters in it. We know that. But I think they'll be, again, mostly in supporting roles. Alrighty, what else do we have in the stack of stuff? Well, I was originally hoping I could do like one of my big battle streams, when I get dressed up and we go in depth about a battle. But to be honest, this anniversary will be on Monday, and I got so much on my plate right now. I'm not starting a whole other side quest doing another research project right now. So today we're gonna use today briefly to commemorate what will be on Monday, the anniversary, the Battle of Mill Springs, which you probably haven't heard about, but is very important to Kentucky and its involvement in the American Civil War. So let me go back over here. How do I go back to sharing? I'll figure it out one day. Yeah, there we are. That's what we want. So this article is going to be published through the Emergent Civil War, which is a very good resource if you're going to do research on the American Civil War. Emergent Civil War, they publish short, easily digestible books on various battles. They usually range about 150 pages. These books, they're very swift insights into key moments. They also have a spinoff. I think they have Emerging Revolutionary War series that's also spun off. They were actually that was the Emerging Revolutionary War book on Valley Forge was my chief resource when I did the Valley Forge video a few years ago. I have a few acquaintances that are involved behind the scenes with Emergent Civil War. I've chatted with them a few times. I know they're very passionate about what they're doing for this organization. And they host an annual symposium down in Spotsylvania Courthouse, Virginia, which I'm really hoping someday I'll get to go down to that symposium. Maybe this year. Maybe. Time will tell. I'm just trying to catch up with the chat. So they have a lot of guest offers. They'll become authors of this page. It's kind of like a blog, and they'll produce articles about various aspects of the Civil War. They try their best. Each author tries their best to cite their sources, but the sources can vary. I will say that. But in any case, I'm going to read an article here. It's produced by guest author Stuart W. Sanders, and it's about the Battle of Mill Springs. We're going to let Mr. Sanders tell you the story of rain flintlocks, which doomed rebel attacks at Mill Springs. When the Battle of Mill Springs was fought near Somerset, Kentucky on January 19, 1862, the Union troops routed the attacking Confederate Army. Although the rebels outnumbered the Federals, the Southern assault was stifled by their use of flintlock musket, which failed to fire during a steady rain. In late 1861, the Confederates established a camp on the northern side of the Cumberland River at Beech Grove, Kentucky. Brigadier General George Crittenden arrived to take command and was astounded that the soldiers' backs had been placed against the river. Therefore, when Union troops led by Brigadier General George H. Thomas, future Rock of Chickamauga, and Sledgehammer of Nashville, Crittenden left his earthworks to strike Thomas's army. After marching northward for 10 miles, the rebels encountered pickets from the 1st Kentucky Union Cavalry. As musketry sputtered in the rain and fog, the cavalrymen fell back to the 10th Indiana Infantry. The 19th Tennessee and 15th Mississippi Infantry Regiments struck the Hoosiers and Kentuckians near a fence line. After nearly an hour, the 4th Kentucky Union Infantry Regiment reinforced the Federal left flank along a fence and fought the Mississippians in the 20th Tennessee. Later, more Confederate regiments entered the fight, but the Federal line held firm. While the Mississippians were armed with rifled muskets, most of the rebel regiments used outdated weaponry. One Union soldier said that the Confederates were equipped with squirrel rifles, shotguns, smooth-bore flintlock muskets, Mississippi rifles, and old flintlock horse pistols. These arms impeded the Confederate attack because many of the flintlocks failed to operate in the rain. Crittenden recognized these deficiencies. A heavy rain occurred during the progress of the engagement, and in consequence, a great many of the flintlock muskets in hands of my men became almost unserviceable. Despite the guns' ineffectiveness, the rebels' smooth-bore muskets, which fired buck and ball rounds consisting of a round musket ball and several small pieces of buckshot, were dangerous. One Union soldier remarked that, "I do not see how any of us escaped their bullets, for they fell like hell around us." Hold on one moment. Need a quick water break, guys. And we're back. I am hydrated. The rain, however, took its toll. Some Southern soldiers estimated not 1 in 3 flintlocks fired, I should have said, while others contended that 1/10 were useless. "Mine went off once in the actions," James Cooper, the 20th Tennessee Infantry, complained, "and although I whipped the pan and primed a dozen times, it would do so no more." Frustration about the weapon's ineffectiveness was evident. A member of the 19th Tennessee saw 2 or 3 of the boys break their guns over the fence after several attempts to fire them. Just imagine in the middle of a battle, you just get so fed up, like, fire. I'd be there. We've all been there on days at work. So frustrated, you just want to break the machinery. In the 20th Tennessee, some of the troops smashed. Confederate Brigadier General William Carroll reported during the engagement, "I saw numbers of the men walking deliberately away from the field of action for another reason, that their guns were wholly useless. Therefore, the faulty weapons negated a portion of the Confederates' effectiveness fighting force." Instead of giving in to frustration, some soldiers employed aggressive tactics. Bailey Peyton, a young officer of the 20th Tennessee, reportedly told his colonel that "we cannot use our flintlocks, but we can use our bayonets, and you order the charge." The colonel ordered the attack, which killed several members of the regiment, including poor Peyton. The Federal troops, who were mostly armed with Enfield rifles, mounted a stubborn defense. When Thomas arrived on the field of reinforcements, the Union commander ordered multiple regiments to charge into the Confederate line. The rebels broke and retreated to their camp, scattering discarded weapons along the route. One correspondent wrote that the Confederates strewed the ground with equipment, which included mostly flintlocks. Anything with a spread is going to hurt. And this is true. It is a little bit more because I should have proofread this article a bit more. I've read down to the bio, the author, and he's clearly very knowledgeable in the Battle of Mill Spring. It seems this is more about the weapons employed at Mill Spring, not the battle itself. Just to set the context, what's going on. 1861, American Civil War begins. Southern states secede, form the Confederate States of the Union. Lincoln calls 75,000 volunteers to put down this insurrection, this rebellion. By doing that, he engages more Southern states to secede. Union and Confederate forces, they're going to be operating, along the north and south border. Both sides think it's going to be a quick war. Then the Battle of First Manassas happens, a Confederate victory, which greatly upsets the Union cause. Then out west, you have the Battle of Wilson's Creek, which was a was a tremendous Confederate victory for the immediate moment, drove the Union out of southern Missouri for the time being. So when we go into the end of 1861, and I should also mention, while the Union had great successes in Western Virginia, they ended up getting stalemated by a winter season. So the Union were very frustrated how this all had blown up in their face. It went from, they're not going to defy federal authority to, oh my God, they're defying federal authority. What are we going to do? So early 1862, the Battle of Mill Springs is relatively small in scale, but yeah, the Confederate armies, they're in southern Kentucky. They're trying to hold on to it as more Union forces are moving into the region. This is also in the buildup to the big operations you'll see on the Cumberland and Tennessee rivers in February that make General Grant very famous. So this is in the buildup of all that. So Union forces are building up in Kentucky, building up along the Mississippi River. What's going to end up happening is you have this little Confederate force that's trying to hold on for dear life in southern Kentucky, but they're badly positioned. Thomas takes advantage of the situation with his small Union forces. He moves out of Louisville, Kentucky to engage, try to drive the Confederates out, across, I think it's the Cumberland River. Hopefully my geography's right. Across the Cumberland River and down to Tennessee. And eventually what happens is Crittenden, the Confederate general, is like, yeah, nope, we're going to readjust the situation. And he goes on the offensive, and the two, Thomas and Crittenden, collide with each other, and that's the Battle of Mill Springs, early January of 1862. And the outcome of it will be of great benefit to the morale of the Union forces, if that didn't spoil this engagement for you. All right, back to the story. A Southern surgeon admitted that the rebels had been whipped. He ascribes the defeat to the badness of their arms compared with ours, a Unionist correspondent wrote. They had mostly flintlock muskets that would not go off half the time, the day being rainy. Although many of the weapons did not fire, the Confederates had made a dogged attack. A Federal soldier wrote that the trees were flecked with bullets, underbrush cut away as if a scythe had come through, dead and wounded lay along the fence, and on the one side the blue, and on the other side the gray. Enemy dead were everywhere scattered across the open field. The discrepancy in casualties illustrates the differences in weaponry and the advantages of the Federals' defensive position. At Mill Springs, nearly 5,500 5,500. 5,500 sounds right. I always get screwed up. My brain gets screwed up in numbers when I get to the thousands, because you always hear people double up and do 5,500, but my brain's like, no, that's not, no, 5,500. Yeah, but 5,500 is quicker to say. I don't know why my brain always has a fight over thousands. It always has a fight over thousands when doing math. Confederates attacked 4,000 Union soldiers. It was reported the Union Army lost 39 killed, 207 wounded. The Southerners suffered 125 killed, 308 wounded, and 95 were missing. Like I said, this is a relatively small engagement, especially when you compare it to the more famous battles later in the war. When Crittenden's army reached their camp, the Confederate commander ordered his men to escape across the Cumberland River. Yes, I was right. My geographic brain prevails again. Most of the rebel troops rowed across the steamboat Noble Ellis, which towed two smaller barges. Others tried to swim the swollen river and drowned in the attempt. The next morning, Union troops reached the empty earthworks and were shocked to discover abandoned cannons, horses, tents, blankets, cots, food, and other supplies. This included hundreds of small arms. Thomas reported he captured from 500 to 1,000 muskets, mostly flintlocks, but in good order. Union troops sent many of these flintlocks home as souvenirs. A member of the 2nd Minnesota Infantry, for example, took an old-fashioned flintlock carbine from the field. Several weeks after the battle, the Cincinnati Daily Press reported that a number of muskets captured from the rebel troops were brought to the city this morning. They are old flintlock arrangements and look as though they would do more damage to the party shooting than the party shot at. Although the Federals' Enfield rifles outmatched the Confederates' weaponry, it was the rain that ultimately doomed the rebel attack at Mill Springs. Had the weather been clearer, the Union Army would have sustained greater casualties. According to the regimental historian of the 20th Tennessee, if the weather had been fair, or they'd been armed with percussion caps, I'm getting a little tired. The result of that battle would have been far different. Man, my brain really is tired. It rained nearly all the time, and our flintlocks would not fire. Our men lost much time in drawing loads from their guns, the powder having gotten wet in the rain. Many of them never fired a dozen shots. Thanks to the rebels' antiquated arms, the Federal victory at Mill Spring was, according to one soldier, the first blow which breaks the back of this rebellion. Stuart W. Sanders is the author of 4 books, including The Battle of Mill Springs, Kentucky. His latest book, Murder on the Ohio Belle, examines interpersonal violence, Southern honor culture, and vigilantism through the lens of an 1856 murder on a steamboat. And there's some of his works, which he used to produce this article. And there you have it. How basically the technology of weapons definitely was a deciding factor in the Battle of Mill Springs. So yes, in this case, yes, having the better firearm definitely prevailed that day. I can't. I'm stuttering. I'm tongue tied. I'm losing it. Back to the wine. When in doubt, Yeah, especially. I mean, even for some of the more famous battles, that's a lot of baggage just being left behind. I mean, basically, what this battle did, while small in numbers, it really gave Southern Kentucky gave it to Union hands. It gave into Union occupation because not only had General Crittenden been pushed across the Cumberland River, he basically left all of his equipment on the northern side of the river and left it to be captured by the Union soldiers. So this would greatly set back Confederate operations in Kentucky for the first half of 1862. And like I said, this was like the first big morale win the Union had since their earlier losses at Manassas and Wilson's Creek. So for morale, this was very important for the Union war effort. It's also important because this is an early action where we see George Thomas in command, in independent command. I mean, I think at this time, what was he? I think he was like a divisional commander at this point, but he had been detached to go deal with Crittenden's force and Zollicoffer's force here at the Battle of Mill Springs. So you're really going to see how what Thomas is good at, which is just absolutely just drilling an enemy force. Thomas is one of my favorite generals for the American Civil War. He doesn't get the credit he deserves. Sometimes people say he was too slow, and they've been right. But when Thomas wanted to attack, he attacked very violently, like almost on a scale of a William Tecumseh Sherman. When Thomas attacked, he fought it through. Thomas was very methodical when he made his moves, but when he did it, you knew he meant business. Kind of, inhabited that mindset, speaks, tread softly and stuff like that, tread lightly. Now, that was Thomas, he man a few words, but I'm going to start rambling. This is the Redoubt rambling part of the stream, the real rambling part of the stream. But another thing that's interesting about Wilson's Creek. I did a whole stream about Wilson's Creek. Another thing interesting about Mill Springs. Another thing interesting about Mill Springs is that only recently this has become a national monument. So for many years, Mill Springs was only preserved through small-scale private preservation efforts, and then like count and state efforts got involved to preserve chunks of the battlefield. And like I mentioned, there was a Confederate general that was involved here. We talked about Crittenden there in the article, but another one, the one that was kind of a little brash and kind of caused the whole situation and why Crittenden had to move and go on the offensive against Thomas was General, was it Zollicoffer? General Zollicoffer, Confederate general, would actually be killed at the Battle of Springs. Or so at the Battle of Mill Springs, you have a Confederate general killed. A small action, but a very high-ranking figure is killed at this action. So that's why it's also important. But it was only, I think, like 2020, I want to say, is when this was actually given over to the National Park Service and it became preserved as federal property. So this is a relatively new national park. And they're still getting involved, getting signage, updating the visitor center. So it's very exciting. It's always exciting to hear about, a new national monument being established. So I'll read a little bit here from the National Park Service's website. Cited the first major U.S. victory in the American Civil War. The U.S. won a significant victory early in the Civil War at the Battle of Mill Springs. Explore the rolling fields of Kentucky where the battle took place and learn about the state's strategic importance to both sides. A couple different things you can do, like the Brown Lanier House. Just doesn't say what it is, just has hours when you go visit it. An overview of the battle, join the volunteer. Newspaper articles. I like newspaper articles. This gives you a bit of better overview of the battle. So yeah, it's really exciting that, we're always preserving these historic sites. And I know some people, their ultimate goal is to get a site preserved as a national park, as a national historic site. Cough. Obviously, that's not always achievable, and that's not always the best solution, I should also say. There are many sites that are privately run, sometimes just by one individual, that do better than what the federal government and its unlimited resources can do in interpreting an historical event. So it all depends on the situation, what type of event is being interpreted, what location is being preserved. Should it be a private site? Should it be a state? Should it just be a county site? Should the federal government be involved? Everything is unique in what it needs for preservation efforts. But it was really exciting when, in 2020, you hear about a new national battlefield being established. You just don't hear about that every day. It was also I think it was around this time too, like Camp Nelson was around, it was relatively recently that Camp Nelson, which is also located in Kentucky, was made a national park. It was this big, massive, supply base for the Union Army operating in lower Kentucky, in Tennessee, and eventually operating down to Georgia. Camp Nelson was massive, all these buildings. It was also a recruiting center for many different units, including United States Color Troops. And only recently it is now coming under the jurisdiction of the National Park Service. And they're doing a tremendous job out there, getting a brand new state-of-the-art visitor center built, reconstructing some of the barracks, interpreting the only original structure surviving that's out there, one of the officers' quarters. So yeah, even today, there's always cool stuff happening, places being preserved, being recognized. The battle to preserve is never over. It always goes on. Now, I could just ramble here all day. People sometimes think, well, they put the sign up. Okay, we did our job. Site's preserved. No, but it's just getting started. Antiquated. Is that not it? Antiquated? If Jaffa had left that much stuff behind, they would have been executed. Oh boy! And see, we spoke about the blue cat people enough. We have summoned him, so I get to play for Captain Garrett. See, I don't use this. I don't use this bit a lot, so I can't find my bit. There it is.
$10, a lot of money.
I get to use a Civil War themed meme as well. It's great for $10. So this is a lot of money. Do you think Lincoln was a tyrant? Until next time. He's just like, I'm going to leave you with a loaded question. No, I don't think he was a tyrant. I was requested. Billy, who's a regular contributor to the Weekly Language from Wrangler, he's asked me a few times about what my opinions of Razor Fist's takedown video of President Lincoln was. And actually, it's been so long now since I first watched it. All I remember is there were points I agreed with him on, but then there are also points I think he badly misinterpreted. And a lot of it involves with the proclamation of the Emancipation Proclamation and stuff like that. So I need to one of these days go back, rewatch Razor Fist's video, do my own research, and then maybe we'll do a live stream or something. I can counter that video, get my own thoughts on it. Maybe he was. He wasn't a lizard person like we say everybody else was. Maybe he was a blue cat person in disguise. You never know. Well, it was one of them Redoubt-isms that Editor Chan will criticize me harshly for. There's a lot of things that Lincoln does that I don't agree with. There's some things I understand why he did it. There's other things I'm like, nah, you didn't even have to go that far. There's things that Lincoln was really, really light on. It's like, wow, he could have gone full wacko on that one. But yeah, you always hear people they get their whole teardowns of Lincoln, and I'm like, I don't know. It's one of them. I'm kind of in the middle. There's a lot of great things Lincoln did. Here's what I'll say about Lincoln. It may be a little controversial. If the American Civil War had not happened, I don't think Lincoln would be as revered as he is today. As sad as that is to say. there's no way of knowing, but I don't think Lincoln would have had the foothold that he has in like the American zeitgeist today. You have to understand Lincoln, the main reason Lincoln gets in office is because there were 4 candidates vying for the office at the same time, and they tore apart the vote. It completely reshaped, it was tearing apart the party system that the United States had been operating on for a good 60 years up to that point, which we would reconstruct into a different 2-party system after. So, Lincoln gets in, he has the most he has the most votes, but also he's not a majority when he gets in. So and of course, that's another thing that's a big thing that incites these states to secede. So yeah, like Lincoln came into politics and came into the presidency in a very particular situation he would not have otherwise been able to get into. And yeah, it's one of them. Like, I think a lot of people, all we know about President Lincoln is what he did during wartime. We don't know what he would have done in the era of Reconstruction. There's a lot of people that theorize and speculate. We have a little inkling of what he was planning to do in March and April of 1865, but we never saw the Lincoln of peacetime. That would have been the Lincoln to truly decide, is this man truly great to lead a country? He's great to lead it in crisis. Is he great to lead the country in general? It's like when we get into talking about Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who I'll be much more open to be critical about. But we have the Roosevelt that many people idolize, the Roosevelt that was able to keep the country together through the crisis of World War II. But then there's also the Roosevelt that made a lot of bad decisions before 1941. A lot of decisions that we are still hurting from economically in the United States. So that's, I guess, on Lincoln. I don't think Lincoln was ever a tyrant. I don't think he ever reached those levels as much as the South viewed him as such. But also the Southern states never gave Lincoln the chance to prove him as a tyrant. They seceded before Lincoln had the chance to prove them right or wrong. Never go full wacko. No, you never want to go full wacko. But you never go full wacko or Yako or Dot. Wow. We're doing an Animaniacs reference. I'm not complaining. Oh yeah, I'm not denying it. Yeah, it would leave me stuttering for 45 minutes, and then it would eventually lead to this.
Fuck you! I was right! Fuck you! I was right! Fuck you!
And now everybody under the age of 17 just got their ears ruined. The mother that was listening to their child be edumericated just is about to scream Harry Carey, and that's gonna be the end of me. I'm old, so. Alrighty. So just to give you a little bit of an update, that's the end of the stack of stuff for the record. We're going to wind down the stream here. Just give you a little bit of update what I'm getting involved with. A lot. And I'm just talking about the channel stuff. I'm not talking about other stuff in life. Time to start the 2-handed cup clutch. Mm-hmm. The time has come. So we have a new episode of Retracing History. It's going to be coming out this Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm going to try to shoot throughout 2026. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturdays will be upload time and date for future videos. If I start getting into making enough content this year, like enough artifact highlights that I can do 2 a week, then we'll go back to Wednesdays and Saturdays. But right now, I'm trying to shoot for Saturdays, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be there or be square. New episode coming out this Saturday. We're going to be talking about the very first iron-hulled warship in American history. We're talking about the USS Michigan, which was commissioned all the way back in 1844 and would have defended not the Atlantic coast, not the Pacific coast. It guarded the Great Lakes, America's border with what was then British Canada. And it ended up serving over 70 years of active service in the U.S. Navy, which is crazy to me. This little paddle steam frigate. It served from the time of the Mexican-American War, for the American Civil War, for the Spanish-American War, all the way through the Great War. before it would ultimately have a mechanical problem in 1923. And sadly, this historic craft, which it didn't get into any major battles, because again, it was up patrolling the Great Lakes, got into a lot of local disputes, which we're going to talk about in the new episode. The Michigan had to intervene in timber piracy, had to intervene with a war between Mormons, had to intervene with Irishmen invading Canada. And I didn't even get to talk about in the video. It towed around the Brig Niagara for the centennial of the Battle of Lake Erie in 1913. So there's this fascinating story that very few people know about. I did not even know about it until we went and visited Erie, Pennsylvania last April. So I've been sitting on this project for a long time, just not sure, wasn't confident in myself, and also just really didn't know how am I going to take all of these photographs of artifacts, these filming locations of like graves and like areas where the Michigan would have been in port. How am I going to put this into a video, into a retrace in history? Because sadly, there's no ship around anymore. So that is the subject of this Saturday's video. I hope everybody's going to be interested. I hope you will enjoy it as much as I did. And it's actually going to start a trilogy of videos I'm working on about U.S. naval history. So we're starting with the USS Michigan, and then I'm working on the script right now. That's the big thing I was working on this afternoon for the USS Olympia, which was the main reason why we did all those Philadelphia videos last year. The main reason we were in Philly was not for the Rev War stuff, actually. That was a side quest. The main focus was for the USS Olympia. Why? It's Redoubt Productions. I love talking about the Spanish-American War. I love edumacating people about what may be the most important war in American history. At least the most important one that they don't tell you about in the textbooks issued to public schools. So, I'm going to get to talk about the USS Olympia. I'm so excited about that. That'll be coming out later in the near future. That's what I'm working on right now. It's the oldest steel warship still afloat. It was an awesome time to be there. And I'm happy to share my experiences with you about that important warship. And then we'll wrap up the trilogy with Big J. Because we were in Philadelphia, the USS New Jersey is across the Delaware River. Of course we were going to visit, and we literally spent the whole day. We spent a whole day on the New Jersey. If I could look quickly, how large is the file on the USS New Jersey? This is just like what we shot and photographed. Where it is it? Here, go back. I'm in my files right now. Nope. He went too far. I went too far. Oh, there we are. It is 12 gigabytes worth of photographs and videos. I want to preference that most retracing histories, when they're finished, usually bounce between about 2 to 6 gigabytes, depending on length of video. The file of footage is 12 gigabytes. You will be in for a special treat. And to be honest, I don't know how I'm going to edit that down into a reasonably sized video. Only time will tell. And I'm also getting ready to go back out on the road. Me and a humble collector, we're getting ready to go back out and explore some historic sites here toward the end of the month. I'm going to keep it a little covert, besides the fact that we're going back to Virginia, boys. We're going back to the Old Dominion. More on that later. See what some final chats are here tonight. We had a very active chat tonight. Thank you guys for joining in, especially because it's a Thursday night too. We're almost to the weekend. We're almost just got to get through Friday, get through one more day, and then couch. Man, there's just so much. I'm too old, but I make up for it by being real immature. Important words spoken by the Wrangler. Sounds like it got up to some. Yeah, if you're talking about the USS Michigan, it got up to some things. The latter half of that episode, I do dub it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be honest. We're just talking about the wacky adventures of the USS New Jersey in Michigan. Enjoy. Not the New Jersey. New Jersey's later. Public schools didn't teach us nearly enough, sadly. No, they did not. And there are good people in the public school system. They are good people, and they do their best and their damnness to make sure everybody's ready for the real world. But the system, the curriculum, it is funneling to a certain objective, and that's it. You either ride or die by what the curriculum wants. And if you don't, if you're not compatible with the curriculum, well, yeah, you're public school wise, it could be a really rough road. Yeah, history isn't important to future laborers. Well, it's not even just history too. I mean, there's other subject matters. There's a set way that's been approved by the federal government and then has to be administered by the state government down to the county levels, to their public schools. Well, I should say federal approves, state enforces, and the counties have to deal with it, sink or swim. And it's a certain thing. And some people, they fit the format, they fit the mold, they can learn, they can go through the curriculum, the assignments come naturally to them. And other people, they're non-compatible. That's not that they're bad people. That's not they're not intelligent people. They're just not compatible for what the curriculum has been set up. And I think that's also where stuff like social media can actually be used really well to fill in gaps in the curriculum, fill in voids where the curriculum just ignores important information. Again, not just history. I'm talking about all of your common core classes. I'm just happen to be passionate about history. So there's a lot of areas where social media and other types of digital communication can fill in voids that curriculums, they're just not designed to. They're designed for a set person, designed to mold a set individual, and that's it. So, videos and stuff, they can do a lot of good in getting somebody interested and being educated about a subject matter they otherwise would have no care in the world about. The less the people know, the easier they are to control, which is dangerously true. You suspended your viewing of The Last Crusade to be here. I'll let you get back to Sean Connery. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Before you leave, be sure to hit the like button. That lets the TubeView algorithm know you do want to be edumericated through social media, through channels like us here at Redoubt Productions. If you want to follow us in our future adventures, be sure to subscribe here to the channel, to Redoubt Productions. New video going up Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you want to go the extra mile supporting us, keeping us on the road and keeping me caffeinated in the mornings, you can join our membership program, the Garrison, located on Ko-fi. Link is in the description below. And just a heads up, all of our live streams we end up taking down from the main channel. We actually archive them over on what's called Redoubt Productions Replay. So all of our live streams are over there, including this one will be there very soon. So I'm going to post a link in the chat right now. I probably should edit it in the future streams, get in the description. So be sure, if you're not already, be sure to subscribe to Redoubt Productions Replay, because that's where you can access the whole archive of live streams. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. And until next time. Oh, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for joining in. And don't worry, Andrew, we're going to get to some railroad stuff down the pipeline. I'm mainly passionate. I'm really getting into military history for the moment, but I'm waiting for the weather to break so I can go film a certain bridge and tunnel in southwestern Pennsylvania. Just haven't had the time yet. But until next.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain.